Nightfall, Part 2. He wakes and regrets it. He hurts from the fall and the scared and the toothless soul of hurting. He had his wings, he could have landed on his own, but that would mean leaving Toothless scared, and no, no, no. They fly together, they fell together, yes, yes. Still, he whimpers quietly when he moves. The dragon wing wrapped over him where he lays shifts slightly, just enough for Toothless heart of mine to see him, green eyes saying love, 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 and worry. Hiccup shifts on the sand to push his spine closer to the bigger dragon's dark, warm scales, and chirps good, happy, love, good. Toothless purrs good, love, good back at him. He rolls to all his paws and leans against his dragon love's side, rubbing scale skin against soft skin and scale leather skin and fin and wings, so that they smell like each other and the itches of sleeping on sand are soothed. They croon laughter and comforted each other, and Hiccup crawls out from under the extended wing and into the space between chest and throat and jaw, nudging his skull into the soft space under Toothless's jaw, humming happily. Hiccup was so scared last night, scared, small, scared, and here and now with his heart beloved, warm and alive with him, they are joy, love, safe relief, you, we, calm, we, relief, regret, love. He vocalizes softly, hiding his face in the warm dragon scent of Toothless's throat. The black dragon lets him do it, rumbling love through them both. It feels good on his bruises, and Hiccup leans into it for a while, chirping little questions and happy sounds occasionally. It makes his body feel better, but his heart hurts, remembering, and he pulls away, rubbing his cheek against Toothless's and moving to the injured wing on their other side. The sight, even this afternoon as they wake, makes him angry, and he quietly clicks mad, scared, hunt, hurt, sorry, protect, protect, in a continuous, furious tirade, as he examines his work from early this morning. Hiccup has the most delicate and clever paws of all of his nestmates, and he loves to amuse himself or the others with the impossible things they can do. He does not remember learning how to sew or tie knots, but these are not the first stitches he has set, nor the first limb he has splintered. His kin sometimes raid Viking ships or settlements for the fun of it, or to get things that they cannot find in their island nest, and Hiccup, Toothless sometimes go with them if they are bored or if Hiccup wants something he cannot make himself, and sometimes the finger manages to hurt his king. He does not like finger Vikings. They hurt dragons and they are stupid and cannot talk and cannot fly, but they can make things. Toothless thumbs at him calm, easy, peace-breathing love, and Hiccup realises that he has been chittering angrily as he checks the stitches. Sorry, he croons. The breaks from the rock fly, are not as bad as they could be, but they are bad. Still, he has seen worse, set worse, seen his kin survive worse. They will fly again. He checks each laceration scrape by scrape, using all of his senses. He presses his lips to each closed wing to take the temperature of the skin and the blood and flesh below, sniffs for the uneasy stink of infection, licks them just to be sure and to reassure Toothless love. Several repetitions of this he hits a deeper and painful wound, and Toothless yelps and shifts away. Hiccup whimpers sympathy, sorry, mistake, forgive, and the other dragon licks him back, humming. He turns his face up to the gesture and Toothless obliges, which is reassuring and familiar and, entirely as a side effect, plasters his fur out of his eyes again. He is more careful after that. The wounds will heal. He tells Toothless, yes, good, yes, relief, hope, promise, fly, good, us, yes, chirping and cooing and returning to the black dragon's front paws, the better to wrap around his head and say it all again with touch. Together they know that they are hungry. They would have hunted last night, but they followed the other flock because they were hunting already, and last night became bad, scary, bad, confusing, no, falling, and they did not eat, and they have fought and hurt and fled since then. The wind blowing into the sea cave that they have found and claimed smells like sea and flight and open air, with spray from the ocean below and the stubborn snowmelt running down the cliff wall to join it. Come on, Hiccup's tone asks, glancing towards the mouth of the cave and the sunlight there, and back at Toothless. Yes, careful, yes, he answers. The black dragon gathers himself, pauses, laughs a dragon laugh, and lifts one paw up into the air so that Hiccup, perched on those paws, tumbles to the side and onto his back in the sand. Hiccup stays where he's been put, laughing yelp, yelp, yelp back at him. He stops laughing almost immediately, watching anxiously as Toothless Love moves the splintered wing. Toothless moves it gently, not furling it in close to his side the way he should, but keeping it stretched out as if he were going to take off at any moment. Hurting? Hiccup chairs, worried. Toothless purrs, no, no, good, and noses at his partner Love to get him up off the sand, scooping him up with his flat nose and all but tossing him towards the sunlight. Strains careful, slow, Toothless reminds him. Yes, 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 and his voice says that he knew that, but his body says laughter, because he is reckless, and Toothless has had to rescue him too many times, and always will. Hiccup slinks towards the cave mouth, stomach nearly brushing the ground as he moves, step by step, keeping all his paws on the ground and ready to leap and fight or run if danger is outside waiting. He listens, raises his head to look out just a bit, and breathes in the wind. He senses nothing of danger, and then all his senses are blocked out by Toothless Beloved looming over him protectively. Safe, maybe, careful still, he tells the bigger dragon. Toothless hums thoughtfully, but agrees. Still, they spy on the area for some time, hunters waiting patiently to avoid being hunted, before conceding that they are alone. Lifelong habit and near constant company means Hiccup habitually vocalizes his thoughts. He talks to himself because Toothless is himself. He can no more truly imagine Hiccup without Toothless than he could imagine himself dead. It would be the same thing. Sun, good, nice, warm stretch. Happy you, sun, you awake, sand, itch, hungry flying. Automatically, Hiccup looks over the edge of the cliff down to the seawater below, calculating the distance between their perch and the water and the depth of the water from the colour it is, and judging the safety of a leap-glide flight into it from that and the wind and the colour of the rocks and 1,000 other things. He has no name for this process, nor could he explain it. Hiccup can think abstractly, but he does not have the vocabulary to discuss it. He speaks fluently a language rich in emotion and sensation, but devoid of measurements and hypotheticals. Similarly, there exists a disconnect between his thoughts and his pronunciation of the scraps of Norse he remembers or has picked up. He thinks of himself as Hiccup and his dragon love as Toothless. He can no longer properly pronounce the names the way they were intended, and since it has been 15 years since he heard his name addressed to him in a human voice, he cannot recognise the original sounds when they are spoken to him. His concepts of names are abstract, but often impossible to render into a human language. He is missing through lack of use several sounds that the Norse language takes for granted, so the handful that come from Norse roots are badly garbled and mispronounced. Some cannot be pronounced by a human. Others are simply ideas associated with an individual. Several of his nestmates he thinks of as variations on the she who smells like this. He has a dozen or more variations on how he addresses Toothless. Hiccup is intelligent, creative, innovative, inventive. He does not have the vocabulary to talk about it. He is loving, faithful, brave, true. These he says every time he speaks. Already planning his descent, the dragon boy remembers his beloved's injury. Toothless cannot fly, which is deeply wrong. They always fly together. They are a single self, and Hiccup does not want to fly if Toothless cannot. Hial whimpers this realization and unhappiness, turning back to the black dragon and attaching himself to warm scale skin and the leather of the flying with that Toothless wears, except when Hiccup is making it better, which is, when they are back at the nest, often. Toothless huffs stupid silly hatchling at this behaviour, and nudges him away towards the edge. When Hiccup looks at him incredulously, he quirks their familiar ready you jump signal they use when they are about to glide together in the air, pushes him again, and then looks pointedly at the treacherous jumble of cliff face and fallen rocks that they scramble jumped up in the morning light and the fear and the hurting to get to this refuge. The dragon boy loves to fly. He got tired of waiting for his wings to be and made his own so he could be a proper dragon and flirt, soar, glide with Toothless. Every opportunity is good, happy, good, love, joy. Hiccup trills a happy, happy sound. It turns into a brief and adoring dragon dance between the two of them. You, me, we, us, Hiccup and Toothless sing to each other. Dragon twining around dragon boy, clambering over dragon, petting, climbing, nuzzling, touching, loving each other. You, me, we, us. The apparently monotonous lyrics would not translate to a human listener, but it is both the simplest and most complex us song they know. It is who they are, and it is everything they are. It ends when Hiccup's stomach makes an audibly hungry noise. Toothless stops still and lets his partner love stumble into him. Hiccup collapses against him and they pair at each other. Go, 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 Toothless pushes him. He needs no further encouragement to unfold his wings and jump. Brief instant of stiff falling, becoming a glide as his wings catch the wind, descending lazily with nothing but the water and the wind beneath him. Hiccup has spent his entire life in the company of beings who can fly and who love and care for him. He has never been afraid of falling because flight is as much a part of his life as air. He knows exactly what he's doing. And even if he didn't, he'd probably do it anyway. It's glorious. It's living. He veers and tilts and spins a bit, just for the fun of it and because he can. He is a dragon. He belongs in the air. Just before he hits the ocean, faster than he'd like to, he flares his wings backwards and brings his back paws down to trail in the water, slowing him and balancing him as a tail should do. He would like a tail. Tails are good. He does not have one yet, and he does not know why. Making the wings he missed so was good. Maybe a tail will be the same way. A heartbeat later, he's safely in the cold moving water, flailing to keep his head above the waves as the current tries to catch at his wings the way the wind does, pushing him around and down. But he knows its tricks and furls them away from the water's sneaky claws. Rolling onto his back, Hiccup watches as Toothless descends to the inlet's beach a little slower, leaping from rock to rock and clinging to the nearly sheer face briefly, before taking aim at making a giant leap to the shore. Not liking the plan he can see his heart's love intending, Hiccup shrieks a scolding warning, "No, careful, hurting bad, no," at him. Toothless swings his head around momentarily to glare at him, screeches back, "Careful, you, look at me, you," but makes a slightly safer next couple of moves. Hiccup pairs at the good joke. He is given advice he would not follow, and he knows it. They both know it. It's a good joke. Once Toothless is securely on solid ground, Hiccup feels able to look away and be aware of his immediate surroundings. He is pleased to see that between his unusual arrival and Toothless's descent, the local fish have recovered from their shock and returned to investigate them. He twists in the water, reflexes drawing the one claw from its sheath on his front leg, and cutting into an unlucky fish in a single motion. The rest scatter, but breakfast is off to a good start. They prefer to fish from the air, but they can hunt from shore too. It takes him only a few minutes to rejoin Toothless on the beach, briefly and futilely trying to prevent gritty sand from replacing the grains he just watched away in the edges of his dragon scale and leather skins. He will wash again later, as fishing will probably turn into playing once stomachs are quiet again. Hiccup chirps a fish sound, holding it out to Toothless. Fish good, the black dragon croons back, but makes no attempt to take it. Fish, his partner agrees. They hunt fish for a while, baiting them into the shallows with the entrails of the first one, and striking when they are just below the surface. It's a wet and messy process, full of splashes and yelps and laughter, working together 1 minute and then stealing each other's catches the next. Hiccup scares up a crab and stalks crabs instead. He likes them better than Toothless does, having more patience to get rid of the hard, nasty shell. And fish are usually bigger, so they need fewer fish to feed a larger dragon. Hiccup is small enough to not need as many. The dragon boy eats a dragon's diet. His body is used to raw seafood. He has eaten cooked fish, although he would not think to cook them on purpose. Sometimes quarrels break out in the nest and fire is blown, and if the quarrel is over food, then sometimes food gets burned. Then it's eaten anyway, because it's food. While he has had similar experiences with dragon-charred red meat, he has learned that raw red meat does not agree with him, and he has avoided it since the last attempt to share a red meat meal with Toothless or others of his kin. Very rarely he has tasted Viking foods, stolen from raids out of curiosity more than anything. If a food he does not know is bread, he thinks is boring. He has mentally catalogued a variety of cheeses, without too much success or necessarily knowing that they are all types of cheese. They all taste different and universally off to his taste, so he does not associate them except as Viking food. When he feels like it, he will eat nuts when he can find them, and a few plants, including berries and fruits when he can find those. He does not know that his body is driving him to seek out certain nutrients missing from his regular seafood fare, and he cannot explain it to his kin. Experience has taught him a rough and ready experimental method of testing new, possibly edibles, and, like the other dragons, he can deliberately throw up something he's eaten that he shouldn't. Most of his meals, one way or the other, come from under the water, but like all hunters and foragers, he eats what he can find and kill that won't come back to find him and kill him in its turn. After they hunt their meal, not enough, but enough for now, Hiccup wades further into the water and beckons his toothless half to him. "Hurting water, you water, good hurting," he commands, punctuating the demand with a whistled "now." The salt water will clean out the wounds that were hurting the black dragon before in the cave, and the wing is far enough away from the dragon's heart fire to go briefly numb in the cold water. It's a straightforward if temporary treatment, and not unusual for the two of them, or dragons in general. Toothless grumbles anyway as he obeys the benign command. "Good, good, good, better, love," the dragon boy coos to him, swimming to meet him and catching onto a strap of the flying with before the waves can wash him away from his dragon love. He floats there, letting the cold water, which he barely notices after a lifetime of exposure and his current proximity to Toothless's fires, rock him back and forth. Pleased, he rubs his cheek against the side of the other dragon's neck, humming deep in his throat. He can almost forget that they are grounded on an island full of Vikings who have already hurt them once, quite badly, and are uncomfortably prepared to fight dragons. And the stick had made Viking noises at him, the memory of which unsettles Hiccup when it occurs to him. He hadn't understood any of it, except some of the name. Too scared, too threatened, wanting to be anywhere else. Fear, pain, distress from and for Toothless beloved. But some of it had sounded vaguely familiar. Toothless apparently interprets Hiccup's restless, half-vocalised thoughts as a request to stop swimming, because he begins to tow his companion back to the shore, although it is equally possible that Toothless has decided it was time to get out of the water anyway, and if Hiccup disagreed with him, he could just let go, as if that would ever happen. Worried, Hiccup tells him, finding his feet beneath him as the black dragon trudges out of the water. "Want go," he growls, indicating here by kicking at the sand, "not like." The sad, descending sound Toothless replies with means "can't." Hiccup's sigh requires no translation. A moment later, he sets his feet in the ground he has just rejected and declares, "You, me, love, love, love." The rest of his thought is all body language. Shoulders back and head up, chin tucked down. Challenging, resolute. It's an attempt at a stance he's seen other dragons take, but it doesn't quite work for him. Toothless understands, though. "Brave, brave, fierce us," the dragon boy roars at the distant cliffs. His partner love deliberately pushes his nose into Hiccup's stomach, knocking the tail end of the roar into something between a huff and a squeak. Thoroughly told off, Hiccup yelps, growls half-heartedly at Toothless, and gets knocked over completely for his pains. They wrestle on the ground, careful of the broken and bound-up wing, until the dragon boy, still dripping from their swim, is coated in sand again and pinned in it for good measure. It's, Hiccup complains in a series of whines and squirms. "You win, let me up." Toothless laughs at him and eventually lets him up. Released, he turns his back on the black dragon, fully expecting to get pounced on all over again, and strides off into the water again, making hoff, hoff, hoff sounds repeatedly. It's an arrogant coughing noise someone they know makes all the time. His dragon beloved lets him get a step or two into the surf before scything his tail around and knocking him down with a splash. By the time Hiccup manages to come up for air with which to protest, Toothless is curled up a safe distance away, higher up on the small beach, broken wing stretched out to rest, and one green eye peeking out from behind a tail fin to catch his reaction. Prudently, Hiccup decides to admit defeat. When he's clean but wet and cold, he joins Toothless Heart's love and climbs onto the bigger dragon's back to take advantage of his heart fire heat and the sunlight both, drying his skins and warming him inside. In enemy territory, grounded and worried and threatened, it's foolish for them to both sleep somewhere that the finger could find them. They take turns dozing in and out, bodies resting, but minds kept partly on alert, renewed by being together. Hiccup is asleep and Toothless partly awake when the wind changes unexpectedly and the black dragon catches a new scent. His ear flaps perk up, extending and triangulating, and he raises his head slightly, careful not to disturb the sleeper on his back, trying to identify where it's coming from. A moment later, he sees a movement at the scrubby forest edge that lets out to the shore. It's just a little bit wrong. Toothless decides that Hiccup Beloved can always go back to sleep, and summons a blast of fire power energy as quickly as he can, snapping his head around with the unique and threatening sound doing this makes. His dragon boy wakes up almost instantly, rolling to a crouch with a snarl in his throat and his claws already on. Toothless can feel them on the back of his neck as Hiccup puts a paw down lightly for balance and to tell Toothless where he is. The clump of tree and undergrowth and rock he'd aimed at is a smoking absence. Toothless can't smell anything living burned. He only wonders for a moment before seeing the surviving culprit, a smaller Viking she, running now and making good time away from them despite the forest. He is angry and defensive and hurt, and she was smart to run. Hiccup is, for once, silent, waiting. It makes no difference. Toothless can hear him thinking by now. Threat gone, Toothless cheers. Worry, threat, worry, bad, 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 his companion's growl says. A whistle. Go? The bigger dragon looks around the area they have claimed as their own. They have access to food from the ocean and drinking water from the snowmelt cataract. They have a cave nest that they can get to, but the finger probably cannot. They can see any of the dragon killers coming, and they know it exists. This is an island they do not know. There might not be anywhere better. This would be difficult to explain, but Toothless knows that his dragon boy is clever and will understand for himself. He sighs and digs his front paws into the sand. Stay. He raises his head in the same pose Hiccup had tried to assume earlier. Guard, protect, hold, it means. Neither of them go back to sleep.